Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits video. While I'm still finishing the rest of my video for the Las Vegas VIP tour that I took for Area 51, I'm going to go ahead and do another something of the week here, in this case a ghost and spirit of the week, and then that way I'll continue to work on the other videos in the meantime. This random page suggestion came upon a location that's very interesting, at least when it comes to how it came about, but even more interesting is the apparent apparition that seems to haunt it to this day. It's a strange sounding location. It's called Goat Island. And if you're wondering where that is, it's located there in Sydney, Australia, just pretty much out a little part of ways from Sydney in the Sydney Docklands. You're looking at a picture of it here. It's a pretty small self-contained island of sorts, and it stands there to this day. In fact, to this day people still utilize it as a place of sorts for boats and for some kind of naval operations of some sort. And to this day also it is a tourist attraction because of all the rich history associated with it. Now, as far as the apparition that seems to haunt this place, it's a gentleman by the name of Charles Bony. That was his nickname, Anderson. So Charles Anderson, otherwise went by the name of Bony, apparently is an apparition of sorts that haunts it to this day. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about him here in a minute. As far as the history of the island itself, first off, where it got its name, Goat Island, it's pretty simple. It has to do with the fact that sometime back, who knows how far back, there was no specific date given, but sometime back, at least before the 1800s, there was a captain who was there in and around that area, and he simply let some goats that he had bought in Cape Town out there into the island, into this remote island. And so the nickname stuck. People suddenly called it Goat Island. Maybe this captain had some kind of fan base of sorts, or he was someone that was very influential, who knows. But whenever he did this action, people stuck that name to the island. They called it Goat Island. At that time, though, a lot of the aboriginals who lived there had a different name for it. They called it Mel Mel, but at least with regards to its current existence, it definitely took on the name of Goat Island. It stuck all the way up to this day. And then in the 1800s, the island served several purposes. Most of it was utilizing convict labor, either to build up some kind of quarry sandstone or to also use it as a place to store gunpowder. Eventually, of course, it converted to the shipyard, the naval yard that you'll see today, with regards to the boats that just constantly surround it. But it was during that time period where there was a lot of, let's say, prisoners that were used for their labor there in that island, that things came about with this guy Charles Bony Anderson. The specific time period is somewhere around the 1830s. So here's what occurred. Apparently this was a young guy. I read somewhere that he was in the teens, like he was 18 or so when this happened. He was serving in the Royal Navy there, and then something happened. He suffered a head injury of some sort. It's a little confusing. Either he suffered a head injury which caused him some kind of severe, uncontrollable, violent mental illness, or he was already born with this illness. It just depends on the stories you read of this guy, Charles Boney Anderson. But with regards to his mental illness, unfortunately, it was something that he couldn't control, so much so that he was kicked out of the Navy, and he became someone that was later found guilty of burglary and other types of violent crimes of some sort, so much so that he was sent as a convict there to that island, to Goat Island, to serve his time period. But because of his mental illness, he was someone who was by far the most legendary prisoner there when it came to the number of times he tried to escape. Apparently he did so numerous times. He would escape left, he would escape right, so much so that each time he was caught, he was taken back to the island, and then he would find a way to escape. I don't know if it was his willness or his mental illness, but he had something in terms of both, where his will just basically told him, I'm going to escape out of here no matter what. And when that happened, he was getting punished more and more to try to deter him, but it wasn't working. In fact, at one point, He was punished to the point where he was given 1,500 lashes with those whips, those nasty whips that a lot of times were used, I imagine, on the slaves. He was slashed with it 1,500 times, and even then, he still did not learn his lesson. He still attempted to escape after that. So finally, the people there on Goat Island, the prison officials, decided they had enough. They decided to create something special just for him. So what you're looking at here is, apparently this is a giant boulder or a giant rock that was there on the island. Some of the officials there started to chisel on it, and they created a very specific spot just for this guy. And what they did was, in order to make sure that he would not escape and have the ultimate punishment for at least the next 2 years, they chiseled a quote-unquote bench for him right on that boulder. You can kind of see where the bench is right there. And then I don't know how they did it, but they added some kind of chain to the boulder, so much so that it was an unbreakable chain, at least in terms of him being able to escape. So they tied him and chained him to that boulder. They added some kind of wooden lid on it. It seemed like this lid would then surround the top part, so that way the boulder was encompassing like his bottom parts, and then the wooden lid was encompassing the top parts, so it was almost like encasing him. And then that way he was chained inside a impromptu box of some sort, made out of the boulder and then also made out of that wooden lid of sorts. There was holes placed on the lid, and then that way he could still breathe. And then on top of that, the holes were large enough so that every day, whenever it came time for food, he would not be let out of that self-contained box of sorts. Instead, food would be brought to him. In fact, it was forbidden for anyone, even the other prisoners, from going near that place. And those that came by, at least, were the ones who were authorized to give him the food every now and then. Still, he was apparently undeterred. He still tried to escape in some ways. Apparently, the idea was that anytime a ship moved past the island, he was still able to jump out of that, I guess, self-contained box of some sort, but he was stuck. Like, he didn't have the ability to break that chain. And when that happened, then he would just go back into that self-contained box of sorts. Crazy when you think about it, because for 2 years in a row, there he was stuck there. He had nothing, like whatever the temperature was, however hot it was, however cold it got, however much it rained. I don't know if it snows there in Australia, but if it did, it was even worse, no doubt. Whatever was happening, he was stuck there for the next 2 years, day in, day out. Strangely enough, he survived this particular experience. He survived it completely. He was able to endure all of those 2 years of hardship, but unfortunately, whatever was happening afterward, it still claimed him, because his health had deteriorated so badly that when he got out, he shortly died thereafter. Apparently, he died of bad health because of the time he spent there. Now, because of those 2 years of hardship that he was in that location, apparently people state that when they go to Goat Island, and they specifically go towards that area, they can hear him to this day. This guy, Charles Bony Anderson. People say that they either hear some kind of shouting that's in and around that location. Some others state that they can see like a figure of sorts as well, still raving madly, almost like when he was chained up in that particular box. And then others state that they can see something else, like they see someone hunting around that area too. So I was trying to see if anyone has like any let's say photographs or video of it of sorts. No one unfortunately has anything, but the idea is, just like with all the other examples there are out there when it comes to ghosts, if if someone stays in an area and experiences very, very bad things for a long time, then sometimes those people come back in the afterlife and they stay in that area even as ghosts. They haunt it as well. So such is the case with Charles Boney Anderson and his haunting there of Goat Island. So if anyone has any more stories associated with this guy, any more encounters, that would be great to hear. If anyone is going there to that location in Sydney, Australia anytime soon, take a little detour. Go right there to Goat Island. It's right nearby the famous, it looks like, Sydney Opera House. So if you go there and you're lucky enough, you might actually see, or more particularly hear, this guy, Charles Bony Anderson. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.